Hello, I'm Ethan Chazen, a New York-based organization development coach. And if you've come to my channel before and you watched any of my playlists, you'll know that I love focusing on organizations that have created an amazing workplace culture that work pretty darn hard to create an environment in which their people can shine. They basically create a culture from the ground up that enables their employees to unleash their untapped potential. What does that do to the organization? It maximizes collectively their workforce's performance and productivity and maximizes profitability as a result. So if you've been focusing on this particular playlist, which organizations that perform at a high level through culture creation, you'll know that I've dedicated some time before talking about world-class organizations. Today, I want to shine the light, so to speak, on an organization that I've had a little bit of, I'll admit it, an organizational man crush on for a few decades. And that organization is none other than W.L. Gore. And in the spirit of full disclosure, to be completely transparent, my wife's middle brother worked at Gore. He went from DuPont to Gore, and then he retired. So I've been aware of Gore for some time, but I really want to shine the light today on what makes them such an amazing, outstanding organizational culture. So let's start with me framing for you the environment at Gore. Imagine an organization with more than 10,000 employees worldwide, operates in over 30 countries all around the world, and they have no hierarchical structure. In other words, they've spent decades taking that 20th century command control pyramid that you know that I speak so disparagingly about, and they've in effect flattened it. They've reduced it to a pretty lean matrix organization. They're based in Newark, Delaware. It's a model. It's been a model for decades of unusual business practice. So a gentleman by the name of Wilbur Gore, he left DuPont to explore new uses for a product called Teflon, and he started his own company called W.L. Gore back in 1958. It's best known for breathable, wearable Gore-Tex fabric, but there's also Glide dental floss and Elixir guitar strings. The company has no bosses, no job titles, no departments, and no formal job descriptions. You may be thinking to yourself, I hope you're thinking, what the hell? How does an organization thrive in that environment? Well, if you've watched my other videos on organizations, like, for example, Morningstar Company in California, you'll know that actually removing all that bureaucracy and administrative and those tiers of reporting and removing people's job descriptions and giving them what they need to thrive, you'll know that that means that organizations are actually more focused, not less, more focused on optimizing their people's engagement. There's no managerial hierarchy at Gore. Top management treats its employees, who are all called associates, the same thing, peers. So that distinction is critically important and intentional. You remove all of that notion of organizational status, elitism. You remove all of that when you flatten out the organization. So back in 2005, so 19 years ago, the company named 22-year associate Terry Kelly as its new CEO. And unlike large corporations, Gore's announcement was made. She was promoted to CEO without much fanfare at all. And today, more than at this point, 15 years later, Kelly continues as chief executive. But she's the first to admit that it's not about being CEO at Gore. It's about the people who work there and their relationships with each other. That bears repeating. It has nothing to do with status of title, position in the organization. It has only to do with the relationships that employees forge with each other. It's all about building relationships of trust, collaboration, teamwork, listening, communication, all of those critical, what you may think of as the pejorative soft skills that enable their people to thrive there, because there are no formal lines of authority. I want to emphasize this. I'm actually going to start back up and repeat it, because there's no formal lines of authority. Employees can speak to anyone in the company at any time. The arrangement also forces employees to spend a significant amount of her and his and their time developing relationships. Because you can talk to anybody at any time at Gore, Relationships are key to success. As one employee described it, instead of trying to please just one boss, which is pervasive in most organizations that still have hierarchy, you have to please everyone. You, as an employee at Gore, have to work with pretty much everybody. So several years ago, the company underwent a strategy refresh, conducting surveys and discussions with their employees about how they fit into the organization's culture. Not surprisingly, there's a cultural divide between the people who are multiple generations of workers and the length of service or stature there. So what that means is when you've been there for several decades, you're fully immersed into the Gore culture, mantra, mindset, behaviors. When you're newer, even if you've come from those kinds of backgrounds or you possess those kind of skills, which is why you were brought in there, it takes you some time to get acclimated to the anybody can talk to everybody everywhere. And so you have to build relationship. The informal organizational structure exists to this day. Revenue of $3 billion. The company produces thousands of advanced technology products for electronics, industrial, fabrics, medical markets. Its corporate structure fosters its very existence, and everything that I just alluded to and will throughout today's video fosters innovation as a significant contributor to associate satisfaction. I'm going to show you some of the employee satisfaction scores in a little bit. Employee turnover is an annual 3%, which is phenomenally low, which means as a result, listen to this, if you're in an organization that has high turnover, or you're struggling, you claim you're struggling because there's a supposed war on talent. You're struggling to gain access to talent. They have literally the pick of the draw with thousands of people who are vying to get in to Gore because they know of the reputation. They've heard of it. Their friends, their family may work or have worked there. And so they want in. And because there's such little turnover, because it's such a great place to work, they're consistently cherry picking top talent. Do you think there's a war on talent there? It's a rhetorical. The answer is no. Gore, in 2017, was named one of 12 legends of the Fortune 100 best companies to work for. That means they've made Fortune magazine's 100 best companies to work for 20 years. That's a critical consideration, and I wanted to start out today with an introduction into Gore. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into what I just alluded to about working relationships at Gore. Relationships are highly valued. When we talk about what is your organization's values or behaviors or core principles and ideology, at Gore, relationships is everything. Relationships with each other as peers, with customers, with vendors, suppliers, and the community. Think about it. I've talked about this in other videos, the shift in mindset from shareholder value, which is all about maximizing profit, and that is a dead mindset, and it should be dying in the 21st century, to shareholder value. Our relationships with our associates are open and informal. We strive to treat everyone with respect and fairly while helping each other learn and grow as associates. We are in it together, in other words. We trust that our fellow associates are genuine and operating with good intentions. How can you trust it? Because the organization has spent decades building a culture in which those are the kinds of people they actively recruit. That's their talent acquisition strategy. They're not looking at somebody to fill a job description based on a job title because they don't have that. So fundamentally, they're hardwired differently in terms of seeking out superhero rock star talent, people who can demonstrate during the interview process that they've demonstrated effective relationships throughout their career, whether they've been working for 5 years or 35 years. So again, relationships are critical for success. The next principle or ideology at Gore is that we believe if you're passionate about your work, intrinsic motivation, you may have seen my other videos on being in flow, intrinsically motivating your people, employee engagement. This is how it actually works at a place like Gore. If you're passionate about your work, you're naturally going to be highly self-motivated, focused, and ready to do whatever it takes to be successful and have an impact. So let me just pause here. Let me pause and say, if you think about that, as an organization, if that's your core one of your core guiding principles, and you're going to look for people who can tell you during the recruiting or talent acquisition stage, during the interview process, they can say, I can show you demonstrable times in my career where I have forged relationship, where I've been passionate about what I've been doing, and therefore I have gone out of my way or taken the extra step, or I've been motivated to do fill in the blank. But if that's your guiding principle, is having people who work collaboratively as peer associates, and they're really engaged and committed to their work, you can start to seek people who fit those superhero employee characteristics. So those are two critical components of Gore. But I alluded to something before, and I mentioned companies that have embraced this ideology called self-management. Employees work in self-managed teams. Now, I've been talking about this for 15 years, but I really want to just spend a little bit more time. Gore, as part of their culture, our pioneers have been for decades in the field of self-management, getting all the administrative bureaucratic crap, all of those tiers or layers of reporting and management in that 20th century command control structure, get rid of it. Empower people to work together. And that's been a guiding principle at Gore. There's a reason Gore consistently ranks as one of Fortune 100's top places to work for over 20 years. People love to work in an innovative environment where they can get together with the people they've identified they need to work with, want to work with, work best with, people who share their values, their interests, their passions for certain projects or offering new products or serving certain markets. They self-select. It's kind of like the high school cafeteria, right? As Alan Deutschman wrote in Fast Company, going back 20 years in 2004, pound for pound, the most innovative company in America is W.L. Gore. Gore's spirit of innovation extends well beyond Gore products into the essence of self-management through its emphasis on teamwork, leadership, freedom, relative freedom in an organizational environment, and individual initiative. Look, if you want to succeed and you say, I'm going to aspire to these values, beliefs, this core set of principles, you need to invest everything into it. You need to restructure your leadership team. You need to restructure all of your internal operational strategic structures to accommodate a people-first strategy. And so I want to talk a little bit about self-management. I want to kind of drill down here. So former Gore executive Joyce Bowlesby met a colleague and the author who wrote this piece by the name of Doug Kirkpatrick. Joyce Bowlesby met them to discuss self-management. She had been an associate there. Remember, all employees are associates, regardless of hierarchy, whether they're senior leadership, middle management, which doesn't exist at Gore, or associates. They're all associates. She talked about being a lead internal sales associate, what that meant. And her husband had also been at Gore for 33 years. He was the 64th associate hired by Bill Gore. Okay. So she had in a sales role been the public face of Gore. So I wanted to say this. She continued to work at Gore because she loved the job and she believed passionately about Gore's ideology, philosophy. And so these are the kinds of people that you meet at Gore. It's pervasive. It's pervasive across any business unit, any product category, any physical location, because that's what the culture is. And remember, I've said this in a lot of my other videos, and if you know, you know, but if you're not, please spend some time watching the other videos. Culture may have a gazillion different definitions which abound, but the only meaningful definition of culture is how people in your organization behave every day. It's the work they do, how they interact, how they treat themselves, and how they treat the organization. It's how they perform. That's what culture is all about. So having said that, I want to spend a minute to talk about some of the structure of an organization and what are some of the attributes that the individuals have there, who they recruit for, what are specific personality traits, and then what the trigger or bridge is from that collective set of skills, background, experience, personality, psychology, but all those things that make people unique and valuable, memorable, what that means for the impact at Gore collectively. So going back to this article, September 2023, best practice culture, amazing workplaces, a great resource. You may want to bookmark it and go back there regularly. So I want to go to Gore-Tex. So Gore-Tex is a clothing retailer headquartered in Newark, Delaware. It's got a tale to tell. Back in 1959, Gore-Tex saga commenced when Bill and Genevieve Gore embarked on a remarkable journey, betting that a company within the confines of the Newark, Delaware home could achieve a modicum of success and lasting kind of competitive strategy. So they looked at the technology, they started Gore-Tex. I'm not really going to kind of dive into Gore-Tex history per se, but it's a company that was founded around innovation. Suffice it to say that that's where I want to shine this spotlight. It's got a distinctive culture at Gore that any organization, if you want to aspire to greatness, if you want to achieve lasting competitive advantage, let's start here. Within the confines of Gore, there's an aura of enthusiasm surrounding the company's mission and the contributions of each associate. The term associate resonates deeply. It's not a word to people who work there. It's a lifestyle. The term associate resonates deeply, embodying not just employees, but all valued strategic business partners, stakeholders. Remember, the word stakeholders is the fancy word for groups of individuals that interact inside and outside of the organization. The unwavering dedication of every employee to the company's objectives, coupled with seamless collaboration through a lattice of communication. A lattice of communication means very little hierarchical structure, more matrix, flatter, and therefore people take initiative to figure out who they want and need to work with to achieve great things. A lattice of communication, that's the cornerstone of W.L. Gore's sustained growth and triumph. It all is driven by its peers. So here's the deal. When we talk about you make your months, you make your quarters, you make your quarters, you make your years, we have to report back financially to our shareholders. Bullshit. In the 21st century, there are organizations, not just startups, not just little itty bitty tech, but huge global multinational corporations that have been around for decades with tens of thousands of employees that can consistently perform financially at a high level because of their people, not despite their people. Their people are not an, oh, by the way, or a throw out consideration. Their people are not referred to as assets. Their people aren't controlled and managed. Their people are the reason they perform at such a high level financially over and over and over again. So the framework, the lattice framework of constant communication, team building, relationship cultivation, peers, it liberates employees at Gore from the conventional hierarchical constraints. I have been saying this for 15 years in my consulting practice. I've been proselytizing the value of de-emphasizing operational efficiency, throwing away the strategy when needed, and focus instead on your people. Because of their almost disdain at Gore, historically over the decades since they founded in 1958, because of their disdain for that command control pyramid structure, they're able to nurture personal, professional growth through relationship cultivation and bring to bear the unique talents, perspectives, background, experience, cultural diversity, language proficiency, certifications, accreditations, all of the things that make employees unique to accomplish Gore's project goals, team goals, organization goals, and outperform their competitors year after year after year. I want to read one more thing. Kind of while we're talking of the joie de vivre, the spirit at Gore. The joy in the work employees have is palpable. Gore endeavors to touch the lives of a diverse spectrum of individuals, from firefighters, outdoor enthusiasts, to commuters, cardiac patients, among others, in terms of the people they serve with their products. Each day they stimulate and empower their employees. Each day they stimulate and empower their employees to contemplate innovative applications like Gore of their cutting edge materials for the betterment of people's lives. Far too often we get hung up on the notion of, okay, what's our culture? It's our vision, it's our mission, it's our core values, maybe it's our code of conduct, it's a marketing, the formal marketing strategy, what we say, all of this is about our culture. This is lived. This is infused. It's like crank cocaine into the fabric, the collective DNA of the workforce, and reinforced on a daily basis for the entirety of the organic history of the organization. And then they're predicated on some really, really strong fundamental principles like meaningful diversity. At Gore, the intrinsic worth of every individual is celebrated. At Gore, the individual worth of every individual is celebrated, recognized, rewarded. The commitment to impartiality and equality. It's not nepotism. It's not based on who you know, or who your godfather is, or who your mother is. It's based on a meritocracy of performance. It's impartiality and equality, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age. A lot of organizations say this. I'm not disputing that a lot of organizations don't claim this. Very few achieve it fundamentally year after year after year. And so here's the takeaway. When I hear organizations whining, bitching, and moaning to me about, oh, ever since COVID, or these Gen Zs nowadays, or, Ethan, there's a war on talent. Excuse. That's all we have to fall back on as organizations when we can't compete truly because we lack the vision to understand that world-class organizations in the 21st century to accommodate a shift in the workplace dynamics with boomers and matures leaving by the thousands every day and a new 21st century workforce inhabited majority of millennials and Gen Zs as future leaders. We need to reorient and think along those lines. So at W.L. Gore, 57 years of authentic culture. So sure, Gore-Tex is Gore's most famous fabric, but it's just one of many of a diverse portfolio that includes vacuum filters, microwavable cable assemblies, guitar strings, dental floss, acoustic vents for cell phones, medical devices to treat heart defects. If it were publicly traded, it's private. Oh, did I not mention that? If it were publicly traded, Gore would be worth $3.1 billion. It would also appear as number 712 on the Fortune 1000. But Gore-Tex is not the only thing Gore is known for. It's famous for making employees extremely happy. So, in 2023, Gore keeps rising to number 17 on Fortune's 100 best companies to work for. It's been on that list every year since 1998. Workplace experts have long studied and replicated the Delaware-based company's people practices. We're quite proud of that, says CEO Terry Kelly. You can have, one really good year and make it on an auspicious or really well-regarded list of great places to work, but to do it, sustain it, not for 2 years or 5 or 10, but 20 years? Voluntary annual turnover, people leave willingly, 3%. That is what we call in the trade mashugana. That's just insane. So I want to read something. Don't confuse Gore with some kind of Google or Twitter tech startup. The word culture nowadays, you think about free perks, you think about foosball tables and funky chairs and massages and great meals. Gore's HR team says that it's a conscious culture. You may have seen me dedicate video. I've talked about conscious culture. It's one that Malcolm Gladwell has used as a case study in the Tipping Point book, which if you haven't read, and I've said it before, read that book as a seminal moment in the shift from shareholder value to stakeholder value. That's when Bill Lee and Genevieve Gore created the company back in 1958. So I want to read something. The founders sought to combat the traditional notion of management. Management, whether you think about the Latin mano agere or the French derivation management, Management is about control. It's about controlling employees. Employees are assets. The whole Douglas McGregor XY, theory of management. X is they have to be manipulated, dominated, controlled. Y is, they can be rewarded, recognized. But under that kind of construct, management is about control, dictating terms. The employees give up power. You're allowed to force them into a toxic, abusive culture because they're given the servitude of a paycheck. That's gone. That's dead, according to people at Gore. That doesn't exist, that command control mindset. Gore has no hierarchy. It's a unique organization described by Bill Gore, its founder, as a lattice work. There's that word again, a lattice work of strong interconnected talents woven together like a tapestry. Or, if you want to go there, like an impermeable textile. Managers or leaders, which, by the way, I'll argue that managing and leading are two fundamentally different things, who oversee teams, they're basically project leads, and divisions, and all employees are associates. Yes, there's a CEO, but Kelly says she doesn't even like the term CEO. The thinking, she says, is to always empower the individual. At Gore, that scares a lot of companies because you think you'll lose control. In my consulting practice, I've worked with over 500 organizations in the last 15 years. One of the fundamental reasons why most organizations tell me they're not willing to take the leap is when I talk to them about empowerment and giving people control and letting them choose the kind of autonomy that it permeates a place like Gore or Morningstar or all the other best places to work, is they worry about their people being able to have that control. Think about that. What you are saying, if that's your fundamental premise for not moving forward with this kind of empowerment, is you don't trust your people. Forget your employees. What does that say about you as an organization where you're hiring people that you don't trust enough to give them everything they need to excel? Shame on you. That's your stupidity. That's your abject short-sightedness and inability, probably, to remain viable and retain competitive advantage over time. Because remember, there are three levers you have to pull to move your organization forward. Strategy, it's kind of like Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Operational efficiency, how much blood can you squeeze from the stone? Organizations are so operationally efficient with EOS and CRMs and AI, and it's just, at some point it's diminishing return, right? It's your people. And I've spent 15 years developing processes to measure employee ROI, but it's your people. It's your people that you want to empower. And again, that scares a lot of organizations. Unlike many other newer organizations that focus on culture at a superficial level, Gore doesn't think about perks that are showered liberally on many other top 100 best companies. Its headquarters in Delaware doesn't have foosball tables or napping pods. We had a culture before culture was a buzzword, says Leslie Nakbar, an associate in fabrics who's been at Gore for 5 years, and says she's happy to stay forever. Why? Why? Because it's authentic. It's not a facade. It's not BS, in other words. So these are the kinds of attributes of an amazing workplace. So now let's look at how all of this time and blood and sweat and tear equity at Gore over decades to build an amazing workplace, has it resonate when you actually put your finger on the pulse of employee satisfaction? So let's go to great places to work, okay, and look at Gore. 86% of all employees surveyed say it's a great place to work. What if you were to ask your employees today, are we a great place to work, and have some really, really strong measured description of what that means? Do you think 86%? Do you think 50? Do you think 25%? What's the number? Founded in 1958, it's a global material science company, more than 13,000 associates over 5 continents, 30 countries, thousands of products, okay? Company culture at W.L. Gore. I want to read something to you. I want this to sink in before I move on. 86% of all employees at WL Gore and Associates say it's a great place to work, compared to 57% of employees at a typical US-based company. So if the average, if the mean is 57% and they're saying 86, could you even begin to think of what financially, from an impact standpoint, that means to this 30,000 employee private company when you extrapolate that in terms of impact on people's performance and productivity? And okay, so listen to this. 94% of Gore employees say I'm able to take time off from work when I think it's necessary. 94%. 93% say when I joined the company, I was made to feel welcome. I audit and I re-architect company employee orientation and onboarding. They suck across the board. They're awful. 93% say they were made to feel immediately welcome. 91%, 9+ out of 10, are proud to tell others that they work at Gore. 90% of our customers would rate the service we deliver as excellent. 89% say, I believe management would lay people off only as a last resort. And I've, during COVID, I did a lot of organizational outplacement work. I helped them as they laid off thousands of employees transition, whether it was venerable firms that had great reputations or awful, god-awful cultures. When nearly 9 out of 10 employees are saying, we believe that our organization, Gore, would only lay people off as a last-ditch effort, that's it. That's the measure. That's how you know you're cooking with butter as an organization in terms of culture. It is insanely powerful. You look at every year, you look at how it manifests, meaning decades of commitment from an organizational perspective on people at the heart of the culture. People are employees, our employees, our employees. 2023, 2022, 2021. It's just a chronology, a track record going back decades of success. And because of all this, because of what they're doing for their employees to create a great place to work, the expectations are high. We set, as an organization, Gore would say, we set our bar of expectation really high for the people who come and join us. And so that's what I want to talk to you a little bit as I wrap up today's video. Commitments, not assignments. Gore believes that if you're passionate about your work, you're naturally going to be highly self-motivated. Remember, we talked about intrinsic internal motivation versus extrinsic, having to be given gift cards and paid time off and other trappings of external influence. They hire the best who have already proven a track record throughout their tenure, throughout their career, of being intrinsically motivated by doing work that matters to them. So at Gore, so hold on a second, Bill Gore, founder of WL Gore, authoritarians cannot impose commitments. Authoritarians can only impose commands, meaning in a top-down command control organization, we tell you what to do, you do it, or you risk getting kicked out. And we'll do it without a moment of hesitation because we don't care about you because you're an asset. You are a photocopier with limbs. At Gore, rather than having someone tell you what to do, you get to decide what to work on, where you can make the greatest contribution as part of a team. Individuals at Gore negotiate job assignments and responsibilities with their peers, depending on what a team is working on. You can always say no, but once you've made a commitment to a project and a team, it's a near sacred oath. You're accountable to your team. You are accountable to your team. The negotiating process can be time-consuming, but Gore believes the payoff is worth it in morale and in bringing together a diverse perspective and set of talents needed for success. People are assumed to be multifaceted because they hire for that attribute. So they are not expected to devote 100% of their time to one project. Typically, within a few months of joining their first team, new associates will be encouraged to add a second or third project. The personal challenge, the scope for contribution, and the pressure to contribute can be both exhilarating and exhausting. Okay, so if you're familiar with Bruce Wayne Tuckman's 5 stages to team build and construct, you understand the stages. At Gore, it's part of their philosophy to bring people in, empower them to succeed in a team environment, and then enable them to choose multiple teams by choosing who and what they commit to. I can't even begin to explain how powerful that is, except I kind of can. So if you go objectively to the online employer review sites, and remember, I always say with a caveat, a modicum of kind of reality, people who go online to complete an employer assessment, whether they're currently working there or they used to, there's a bit of subjectivity, meaning you're either really favorably inclined to give a great review because you love working there, or you had a horrible experience. So typically somebody who's doing a review is on one end of the spectrum. But okay, that aside, W.L. Gore and Associates employee reviews, 492 reviews. When you look at rating by category, work-life balance is a 4, pay and benefits 3.8, culture 3.6. Those are really good above average numbers that you would kind of expect to see. I'm not going to go into some of the some of the actual comments. So what do I hope you've gained today by coming on and watching this video on Gore? It has been an organization that has achieved consistent, ongoing track record of success financially because it's been committed since its founding in 1958 to its people first. And if you can think of, in your organization, whether you've been around for 5 years or you're a startup, or you've been around for decades, whether you're stuck, whether you're struggling with this thing called the war on talent, whether you're struggling to figure out how to get back on track, whether you're figuring out a new strategy, whether you're not sure what markets to compete in, what products to sunset, what new services to offer, what new clients to go after. If you're not sure about the decision making, lean on your people. And if your answer to that as a strategy of people first is we don't trust our people, we don't have the right people in the right seats right now, then that's a golden opportunity to rethink your people investment strategy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As you know, I'm always on the lookout for other great organizations to assess. So if you work in one, or if you know of somebody who does, direct them my way. I'd be happy to interview them on Chasing the Dream. We're in our 2nd season. And also, if you like the content, if you took away even anything remotely valuable from this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really supports all the work, the time and effort that I put in to all this great material on organizations that are transforming their culture. Smash the like button, share, do whatever you can to promote the channel. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a great day.